raised a lot of eyebrows when Pink Floyd announced that they were going to release Animals in an Atmos version. Now, the reason for that is only 20 months ago we saw a 5.1 edition of the album as well as a stereo remix. So not a lot of time between the two. Many actually shelled out as much as $200 for that first release back in September 2022. We're going to unpack this a little bit more. We're going to understand what you actually get for your money now and ultimately ask the question, if you've got this, do you need this? For the casual Pink Floyd fan, Animals is probably best remembered for the pig. It was on the cover of the 1977 version of the album, and it was rolled out in their concerts after that. For others who are much more serious, it is actually a polarizing record, but we had to wait till 2022 to hear the very first 5.1 version of the album. There was quite a lot of interest in this in terms of what the surround sound format could potentially bring to the fore in relation to this album. The delay was due to typical Waters Gilmour squabbles. Apparently it was about liner notes. There was also some squabbles about the mix as well, but we eventually got there. So when we did listen to what was released back then, it's safe to say everyone was pretty happy about it. At least I was. I thought it's the best version of the album that exists currently. Maybe you beg to disagree. So it does feel just a little bit shonky. And one does wonder whether maybe marketing may have panicked to think that they've got a 5.1 version when the Atmos surround sound format was really taking over with things. It's either that or the Simply Pink Floyd didn't have a lot of product to ship this year. To the mercy of collectors, there's no special editions here. And that just means that your previous edition is effectively redundant, unfortunately. What you do get from a sound point of view is that there's 4 versions at your disposal. There's the original 1977 mix. There's the 2018 remix in stereo, the 5.1 remix, and finally the Atmos edition, which is based on the 2018 remix. 4 editions there. In terms of the packaging, wow, what a treat we have. We have a Blu-ray. There's no special editions, but we have a Blu-ray. It has a booklet, it has stickers, it has a postcard. What a time to be alive. I can't wait to send that postcard to somebody when I do get the time. So what does it sound like and would you buy it? Well, it is an interesting question. I quite liked it. I liked listening to it, but I liked listening to Animals. So it's a very hard one to attempt to critique. If you haven't listened to the 2018 remix before, what you'll find is it's a much brighter mix than the one that came through originally in 1977 and has been remastered a couple of times since. Some of the takeouts for me when listening to this is that you do feel the surround sound vibe with it. It does swirl around. It feels brighter. Rick Wright's keyboard playing comes to the fore. It sounds a lot more immediate than the versions you hear. You think Animals is really a guitar-driven album, and you're largely right, but you hear the keys a lot more. And you'd argue that this is probably his last great contribution to the band. I was probably thinking before listening to the 2018 remix that might have been Wish You Were Here. Dave Gilmour's bass playing is also interesting. Now, he played bass on Pigs. I thought it was Roger Waters. I thought he had actually quite a bit of a talent as a bass player. It turns out it was Dave Gilmour. And finally, Sheep. It's probably the poor cousin of the big three. That sounds a lot more interesting to listen to. I don't know why, but I just found I was gravitating to that song more than I would have with the original versions. Overall, it's great, but I would have said the same thing in September 2022. And a lot of people are saying out there that they actually can't detect any changes. No, those who've got a 7-speaker setup, I've got a 7-speaker setup, we're saying that some of the censor speakers can't be heard really with this mix. When we checked it out, we could hear stuff coming out of it, but not a lot. It feels as if it's effectively a direct from 5.1 to Atmos version that we've got in our hands, which again just makes the whole exercise feel a little bit more dubious. I guess in summary, if you already have the September 2022 version, I wouldn't even bother getting the Atmos version. It sounds fine as it is. If you haven't got the September 22 version, I'd actually do yourself a favour and go and see if you can find that version in bargain basement bins. It'll be going for cheap just because this version here supersedes things. And then finally, if you've got neither and you've only got Atmos, well, I guess knock yourself out.